Hello, my name is Amy Patterson, and I am the Special Education Data Manager for Kentucky. And this is the beginning of year data and reporting training for 2024-25 school year. First, we want to start off by talking about upcoming reporting dates. The first one that's coming up very soon is the Special Ed Exit Data Verification. That is actually due the Monday after October 31st. So this year, it will be due on November 4th. So we wanted to give you one more time to run the report. It only updates on Mondays. So we wanted to give you one more Monday to be able to run the report after October 31st before you verify your data. The second report that's due is the big one. It's December 1 child count reporting. And for this one, all enrollments and documents must be finalized and locked by the close of business on December 6th. That's a Friday. And then the verification survey is going to be due on Monday by midnight, on Monday, December 9th. Other upcoming reporting dates, these won't be until next semester. The first one is GMAP, the IDEA application in GMAP. That is due June 1st. We know we often have delays with that one, so if the due date will be extended, we will let you know. The personnel reporting is also due in GMAP on June 1st. Indicators 11 and 13 spreadsheet is due June 30th. Indicator 12 survey is due June 30th, and discipline data verification is due June 30th. The first thing I want to talk about is resources that are available to you. And I highly, highly, highly recommend that you look at these resources and you use these resources. Don't just look at them, but have them available to you to help answer all kinds of questions. So the first one is a special education resources for using Infinite Campus. It's just our website that has been available for quite a while. But some things I want to point out on here. We have the Special Education Reporting Manual, which I'll be talking about in a little while. We have due dates over here on the right-hand side. We have training resources. This video that I'm recording right now will be posted under these training resources. The resources always have the most up-to-date links for special education reporting. We have videos, we have PowerPoints. I even have a video that talks about exiting and indicators 1 and 2, how it affects your graduation and dropout data. We also have, and this is also very important, that I suggest you look at, is the special education document data standards. And so, for example, the processes data standard. This one talks about some information that I've been asked a lot about over the last few weeks about students earning an alternate diploma and how you exit those students. And this will walk you through that information. The next resource is a special education reporting manual. Again, on that special education resources for using Infinite Campus. This document, and I have spent a lot of time working very hard on this document to make sure it has all the information that you need for any kind of reporting that you do for special education, especially within Infinite Campus. And I update it twice a year so that you have the most up-to-date information. Right now, one of the most important pieces that you want to look at is this enrollment code crosswalk in Appendix C. And this will help you with the exit report. because it will show you for every withdrawal code that is used in the enrollment in status, how that maps to the KDE determined SPED exit code in the SPED exit detail report. So this will show you how it maps. So if you're wondering why, for example, your student is listed as an alternative high school diploma, why might that be? Well, if you go back and look at alternative high school diploma, you can see the diploma type, you must have it entered as alternative high school diploma. And you must have given the student a G code at some point in the last year. So this is one piece of really good information. Another piece of good information that you might want to be looking at is about child count. Information about exiting here. About the child count report. And this talks you through how to run the report. It talks you through what's required for the report. It even talks you through students moving to Kentucky from out of state, and how you get those students in Infinite Campus so they will count on child count if they have an active IEP. So that's another really good piece of information. It also has information about indicators 11, 12, and 13 and discipline, all kinds of information. Next one is the KDE data standards. So we've talked a little bit about the special education data standards, but we also have data standards for all things in Infinite Campus. So the reason I'm showing you this is I often get questions about behavior, for example, or course codes or enrollment. And so there are data standards for all of these. We also have our special education data standards here as well. They're the same ones that are on our page. We have a preschool data standard for students who are in preschool but may not be in special education. So, and then there are other links down here on how to set things up in Infinite Campus. So again, I highly encourage you to review these resources and use them, print them out, have them available, because they will help you as you go through the school year. So this was a breakout room that we had in our training, and I just suggest that maybe you review these resources and see if you can find information that you would use that you find new for exiting child count and indicators 11, 12, or 13. Okay, so let's talk about special education exiting. First of all, you want to make sure you use the SPED exit detail report. Do not use the special ed exit report that was in Infinite Campus because it will not give you accurate information. The SPED exit detail report can be found at Kentucky State Reporting, KDE Reports, and in order for a student to appear on that report, they have to be ages 14 to 21 on the December 1 count prior to exit. They have been enrolled in a public school district in Kentucky on or before October 1st, and they either had to have an IEP at the beginning of the school year, or the student had to have an IEP at the end of the previous school year, but a no-show enrollment at the beginning of the current school year. And by current school year, now we're actually talking about the 23-24 school year. We're still reviewing data from last school year, from the 23-24 year. So because students who might have been marked as dropouts back in June or July. If they enroll on or before October 1st of this year, of 2024, if they do enroll, they will no longer be listed as dropouts, or they should no longer be listed as dropouts. So you want to review those students and make sure you have the appropriate enrollment in status and special ed exit status. And then you want to make sure you change those to match the accurate dropout status. And then I will send out the link to the survey this week. Child count. So this is just a question that comes up, how to calculate percent of time for least restrictive environment, or LRE. So this is just here for you to review. I'm not going to read it to you, but it's here in case you have questions about it. But some things I do want to point out for LRE. Students who are 5 years old and in preschool on December 1 should have an LRE code beginning with 3. An LRE code of 3X is only for students who are receiving services in their home, actually at their house. These are typically the most fragile, medically fragile students, and cannot leave the home and have people coming in to provide services. The LRE code of 3P is for those who are receiving services at a service provider location. For school-age children, that's ages and grades kindergarten through grade 14. Students who are 5 years old and in kindergarten should have an LRE code beginning with 6. And again, that's on December 1st. Students who are 5 years old and in kindergarten on December 1st should have an LRE code beginning with 6. Some reports you're going to need to know about. The IDEA December 1 count extract updates in real time, so you can run that at any time. If you add an IEP, once you've completed it and locked it, you can run the report and the student should show up on there. The Federal Submission Validation Report, which I'm going to call the FSV, only updates on Mondays. And it actually only updates the changes made after Friday at 4 p.m. And later will not be reflected until the next week. So we have something that we call the reporting warehouse. And over the weekend, every weekend, Infinite Campus does a snapshot of the data within Infinite Campus. They do that over the weekend. It begins on Friday afternoon. And then we run all reports against that reporting warehouse, because if we tried to run them in real time, they would slow down the system so much that nobody in the state would be able to use it. So we have to run it against the reporting warehouse. I know it's not ideal for many of you, but that's why we have the IDEA December 1 count extract that allows you to run that in real time. So extract requirements. So in order for a student to show up on the IDEA December 1 count extract, the following must be true. The student has to be enrolled in the district on December 1st. The student has a locked, individualized educational plan, an IEP, in the district on the child count date, December 1st. The student has a complete locked Kentucky evaluation eligibility determination date in less than 3 years before the child count date. And the students are ages 3 through 21 on December 1. So we often get a lot of 2-year-olds on our child count. We usually end up with a handful of those. I don't know how it happens, but just know that we will not be able to include those students. Other requirements, the student's special ed status has to be A, AR, or I. The primary disability must be populated, and the special ed setting must be populated and age appropriate. So again, 5-year-olds in kindergarten on December 1st would have an LRE code beginning with 6. 5-year-olds in preschool on December 1st should have an LRE code beginning with 3. And also, the one thing I don't have in here is if the student is 9 years old or older and they have a disability code of developmental delay, they won't be included on the count either. The student must be enrolled in a non-excluded calendar. A non-excluded calendar. So you see the screenshot there with the box around exclude. If this calendar was excluded, it would have a check mark in there. A lot of times people do this, districts do this for private school students or homeschool students or maybe some preschool classes. But if the student is receiving special education services, they need to be enrolled in a non-excluded calendar. Also, just so you know, the individual student enrollment may be marked state exclude. So in the actual individual student enrollment, there's a place that you can mark it state exclude, and you can do that if you don't want students to show up on the report. I'm sorry. You want students to show up on the child count report, but you don't want them to show up on other reports. The FSV, Federal Submission Validation Report. Again, it updates weekly, and it is the exact same reporting as the IDEA December 1 count extract report, except the report makes choices about overlapping enrollments. So if you have a student on your December 1 count extract, but not on the FSV, that is likely because the student has enrolled somewhere else. So in general, the report will include the student on the latest enrollment. So if a student enrolls in August in District A, and then enrolls in District B in November, but District A doesn't know that student is left, so they both have enrollments on December 1st, it's going to go with District B because that was the latest enrollment. The other thing to know is this is the official collection. So this is exactly what I submit to the federal government. Personnel and placement. So I will be sending out when I send out my December 1 child count email, I will also send out information on the personnel data collection. This is not due until June 1st in GMAP. However, the data is as of December 1st. So you want to report on people who are in place working in the district on December 1, even though you're not reporting it until June. FTE, full-time equivalent, a lot of times I get asked what that means. So basically, one person working full-time would be 1 FTE. 2 people working full-time would be 2 FTEs. 2 people working half-time would add up to 1 FTE. So you're going to just add up all of the FTEs of all the people working in a position and calculate the FTE that way, and then report it that way. The other important thing I want you to know about is this report is only used for federal reporting. It doesn't affect district funding at all. All we do is gather the data and submit it for federal reporting. So don't stress about it. Make it as accurate as you can, but don't stress about it. So this is what the spreadsheet looks like, and then you'll just be able to copy over. You'll be able to enter the data and then copy it over into GMAP. There's another view that you have for related service providers. Some other reporting reminders. First of all, it's important that you remember and you remind your teachers to enter the date of consent for initial evaluation. So that date doesn't show up on the printed version of the consent for evaluation. However, it is used in calculation for indicator 11. So it's going to show up and say missing eval date or missing consent date, I think is what it says. And a lot of people get frustrated because the teachers don't enter that date when they're supposed to. I have asked Infinite Campus in every way I know how if we can make that required, and we cannot. I have asked every year for years, for 9 years, if we can make it required. We can't make it required. So it's really a training issue. You need to make sure you train your teachers to make sure they enter that date if it's an initial evaluation. So what is an initial evaluation? Let's talk about that. So if a student has a speech language eligibility and is being evaluated for a new disability, for a specific learning disability, would this be treated as an initial or a reeval? It's going to be a reevaluation because the student is currently receiving special education services. So, but however, it's a new determination for the specific learning disability. So this is what it looks like. The evaluation type in the consent header is going to be reevaluation. And you're going to enter the date of consent for reevaluation instead of the date of consent for initial. In the evaluation header, you're going to enter reevaluation for the evaluation type. However, when you get down to the actual eligibility form within the Kentucky Evaluation Eligibility Determination document, this is where you're going to enter initial determination for this student. Now, I would recommend going ahead while you're reviewing these, while you're determining eligibility for SLD, go ahead and determine eligibility for speech as well. If this is going to be a related service, you're not required to fill out the form. But if it's going to be, if the student doesn't qualify for SLD and it will become the primary disability, then you want to enter redetermination for speech in the eligibility form. You want to do this, you want to do all your evaluations, eligibility determinations at one time, just so you keep your calendar in line. Example 2, student B is receiving services for an eligibility of developmental delay. The student will turn 9 years old soon and will be evaluated next week for MMD. Is this an initial or reeval? Well, if the student is currently receiving services for DD, this is going to be a reevaluation. But again, you're going to choose initial determination for MMD. Okay, for indicator 12, some reminders. Remember, please, to keep a list of SSIDs for students who are referred by KEYS, Kentucky Early Intervention Services, to IDEA Part B. We need the SSIDs. I've talked to some districts, and I think this is an excellent idea. If you enter the KEYS ID or the TOTS ID into Infinite Campus, there's actually a place to put that within Infinite Campus, then you can create an ad hoc that will run that TOTS ID, provide a list of students who have TOTS IDs for the school year, and then their SSIDs as well. Alternate assessment aligned with alternate academic achievement standards, AAAAS. So this is a requirement that we have for the federal government to train on this. This is for students on the alternate assessment in relation to our 1% waiver. So the requirements around alternate assessment first came into effect in the 2017-18 school year. They said the state may not assess more than 1% of students on the alternate assessment. And if the state anticipates that it's going to exceed the 1% cap, it must submit a waiver request to access a waiver um, to assess more than 1%. For the state to be eligible to receive a 1% waiver for any subject area, it must have assessed at least 95% of all students. And then states must also provide evidence that they verified that each local school district that anticipates assessing more than 1% of its students will address any disproportionality in the percentage of students. And this is done through an assurance form. This is how we calculate the data. And I want to stress that this data comes solely from the assessment vendor. So this is only students, it only looks at students who took the exam or who sat for the exam. And it's done by subject area. So this doesn't have anything to do with any data in Infinite Campus. It doesn't have anything to do with child count. It doesn't have anything to do with the alternate assessment tracker. It only comes from the data the vendor gives us. You guys get that data before we do. It goes to our Office of Assessment and Accountability. They submit it to the federal government, and then we get the aggregate counts from the federal submission. But this is how we do the calculations. For all 1% cap waiver requests, the state must provide the public and any interested school district in the state with notice and a reasonable opportunity to comment and provide input on the waiver request. States that wish to request an extension must report the progress of its plan and its timeline submitted last year and additional actions it plans to take for this year, and must have reduced the percentage of students taking the alternate assessment. So these are our data from 17-18 to 22-23. So because we're required to do this, KDE OSEEL is required to determine if admissions and release committees made eligibility decisions that were consistent with federal and state laws and regulations. So KDE OSEEL conducts offsite desk reviews. They select randomly 10% of all other districts over 1%, and then any district, let's see, if participation data reveals disproportionality in the percentage of students participating in the alternate assessment. We've noticed an uptick in compliance. Maybe it might have gone down just a little bit in the 22-23 school year, but it's still much better than it was in the 19-20 school year. And these are some resources that you can review, and parent resources. And if you have any questions about this, contact Lauren Thieneman. There's her contact information. She is the one that oversees the alternate assessment. 1% waiver. These are some other questions that we did in a breakout during our live meetings. So these are some things that you might want to take a look at. And if you have questions about them, feel free to reach out. If you have any more questions, there's my email address, or you can book time on my calendar. I suggest booking time on my calendar for a meeting because it allows us to, first, I'm available. You can find a time that I'm available, but also it allows us to meet on Teams where we can share our screens if I'm trying to show you data or you're trying to show me something you're doing in Infinite Campus. It's much easier if we can share screens and look at what the other person is doing. And then for ELA credit, this is the form to complete. Thank you so much for your time, and please reach out if you have questions. Thank you.